Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to really kind of dig into this question that I'm sure you've all thought about. What does it really take to be, like, amazingly good at something? And we're not talking about just like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
We're talking about, like, peak performance.
Yeah.
Like the top of your game.
Yeah, it's a question that's really fascinated people for, like centuries, right?
Totally.
We love to marvel at virtuosos and these star athletes and, just brilliant minds.
Right.
And, for a long time, the easy answer has just been like, oh, they're just talented.
Right. Talented, end of story.
Yeah, and what if that's not the whole story?
Exactly. And that's why we are unpacking peak secrets from the new science of expertise. This book by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole that challenges that whole natural talent thing.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from reviews, a little peek into the Chinese edition of the book, and I'm ready to bust some myths wide open.
Yeah. And what I think is so interesting about this book is that it really brings science to the table.
Okay.
It's not just inspirational anecdotes. It's about understanding how the brain actually works.
Yeah.
And then how we can use that knowledge to achieve, extraordinary things.
Okay, so let's set the stage.
Okay.
Think Mozart. Okay. When you hear that name, it's practically synonymous with, musical geniuses, right?
Right.
Like the kind of talent you're just born with.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Shinichi Suzuki.
Yep.
He was this famous violin teacher, and he believed that talent wasn't like this magical gift,
Yeah.
He proved his point by teaching hundreds of young children, just ordinary kids, to
Right.
develop perfect pitch,
Right.
which is, considered this rare, almost like mystical ability.
Okay, wait. Mind officially blown?
Yeah.
So if perfect pitch can be, taught, does that mean, anyone can become Mozart with the right training?
Well, hold on. It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
Genes definitely play a role.
Okay.
And this is a big, but
Yeah.
the book argues that there is no predetermined limit
Okay.
to what you can achieve.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is where, the whole brain plasticity thing comes in, right?
Yeah.
This idea that our brains aren't just fixed. They're, always adapting and rewiring themselves based on, what we're doing and what we're experiencing.
Exactly. And the book uses this really fascinating example of how the brain rewires itself for blind people who learn to read Braille. So the part of their brain that's normally used, for vision actually starts processing information from their fingertips.
Oh.
The tactile information.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so it's not about some, mythical talent ceiling.
Yeah.
It's about how we train our brains, how we push ourselves past what we think our limitations are. And this is where we come to, the heart of the book, the concept of deliberate practice.
Yeah. Anders Ericsson spent his career studying experts across a whole bunch of different fields, from musicians to athletes to chess players.
Yeah.
And what he found was that the key difference between somebody who is just good
Right.
and somebody who achieves true mastery is the type of practice that they engage in.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit
Okay.
because we know it's not just spending hours and hours, mindlessly doing something over and over again.
Right.
So what makes practice deliberate?
So imagine you're shooting hoops in your driveway, right?
Yeah.
Having fun, getting a little exercise.
Yeah.
That's what Ericsson would call naive practice.
Yeah.
Now picture a basketball player who's practicing with their team, running drills, working on specific skills.
Yeah.
That's getting closer to purposeful practice.
Okay, but deliberate practice is even more focused.
Yeah.
More intentional.
Exactly. It has a few key ingredients.
Okay.
First, you need well-defined specific goals. That push you past your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's not about staying within the realm of what you're already good at.
Right.
It's about constantly stretching your abilities.
So setting the bar higher each time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it requires, focused training methods that target those goals.
Okay.
And you need continuous feedback,
Yeah.
whether it's from a coach, a mentor,
Right.
or even just by carefully analyzing your own performance.
Okay.
And finally, deliberate practice is about constantly refining your approach based on expert performance models.
Right.
You're not just going through the motions, you're actively studying and emulating the techniques of the best in your field.
So it's about being incredibly intentional about the practice.
Yeah.
Having this laser focus on the specific areas where you want to get better. It's about pushing yourself Getting that feedback.
Yeah.
And like always looking for ways to refine your technique. Like no wonder it's called deliberate. But I have a feeling this kind of practice isn't exactly like a walk in the park.
Yeah, you're right. It's not easy.
Right.
Deliberate practice can be, intense and challenging, even frustrating sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It requires, a lot of discipline and motivation.
Totally.
But the results, as we'll see, can be absolutely astonishing.
So we've established that like deliberate practice, it's hard.
Right.
It's like it takes focus and discipline, and you got to be willing to push yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But before we dive into like the how-to of deliberate practice,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know like what's actually happening in our brains when we're doing this kind of training.
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
So deliberate practice isn't just about building muscle memory or rote memorization.
Mm-hmm.
It's about developing what are called sophisticated mental representations.
Mental representations.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of abstract.
Okay, so
Can you give me an example?
picture this right.
Okay.
You've got a grandmaster chess player playing blindfolded.
Oh.
They can't physically see the board.
Right.
Yet they're able to make these complex moves, strategize and even anticipate their opponent's moves.
Right.
All in their mind's eye.
I've always been amazed by that. It's like they have some sort of like mental chessboard in their head.
Exactly. That's the power of mental representations.
Mm-hmm.
They're like mental blueprints or maps that experts develop through years of deliberate practice.
Okay.
And these representations allow them to process information really quickly, recognize patterns, and make decisions with incredible accuracy.
So going back to the chess example,
Yeah.
the grandmaster isn't just memorizing a bunch of moves.
Right.
They're like building this deep understanding of the game,
Mm-hmm.
a mental model that lets them see the possibilities,
Yeah.
the potential outcomes, like several steps ahead.
Exactly. And here's the fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Everyone uses mental representations in their everyday lives.
Really?
Yeah. So when you drive a car,
Mm-hmm.
when you cook a meal, even when you have a conversation,
Uh-huh.
you're relying on mental representations to kind of navigate the situation.
So it's like we all have these mental shortcuts, these kind of pre-programmed responses
Right.
that help us make sense of the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what deliberate practice does is it refines and upgrades those representations.
Hmm.
It's like taking your brain's operating system and installing a high-performance upgrade.
Okay.
The more you practice deliberately,
Right.
the more detailed, nuanced, and effective those representations become.
Okay. I'm starting to get... So deliberate practice isn't just about repeating the same thing over and over again.
Right.
It's about constantly challenging your brain,
Mm-hmm.
pushing it to develop more sophisticated mental models.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, staying motivated to do that day after day can be tough.
It's true.
So where does motivation fit into all this?
Motivation is the engine that drives mastery.
I like that.
And, the book offers some really insightful and practical strategies to help people stay motivated.
Yeah. Okay, lay it on me. What are some of these like motivational gems?
So one of the most effective strategies is to set small, achievable goals.
Yeah.
Okay? This might seem kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But by breaking down these massive, daunting goals into smaller chunks,
Mm-hmm.
you create a sense of accomplishment that keeps you moving forward.
Yeah, it's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles
Mm-hmm.
begins with a single step.
Exactly.
So by focusing on those small wins,
Yeah.
you get some momentum going
Right.
and you don't feel so overwhelmed.
Exactly. And it's really important to track your progress.
Okay.
Because seeing how far you've come can be incredibly motivating. It's
Yeah.
like having a visual reminder of your dedication and all the work you've put in.
I could see how that would create like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Like the more progress you see,
Mm-hmm.
the more motivated you are to keep going.
Exactly. And here's another powerful technique.
Okay.
Connect your practice to a larger purpose.
Oh.
Find meaning, beyond just the skill you're developing.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this important to you? What
Yeah.
kind of impact do you want to have?
Right.
Having that strong why can fuel your commitment even when things get tough.
So it's not just about achieving a goal to achieve it.
Right.
It's about aligning your efforts with something that really matters to you.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of community and mentorship.
Okay.
Having someone to provide feedback and encouragement and accountability
Mm-hmm.
can make a huge difference in your journey.
Yeah. It's like having a coach in your corner cheering you on
Exactly.
and helping you stay focused.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of inspiring examples,
Yeah.
I remember the book tells this story about Dan McLaughlin,
Yeah.
this average guy who decided to take on this seemingly impossible challenge of becoming like a pro golfer.
Mm-hmm.
with absolutely zero experience.
I love that story.
Hold on from zero to pro. That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
How did he do that?
By fully embracing the principles we've been talking about. He set clear goals. He broke down this complex skill of golf into these manageable steps. And he meticulously tracked his progress.
Good.
He even created this spreadsheet to document every single shot he took during practice.
Wow. Talk about dedication. So did he actually make it?
He did after years of intense, focused practice.
Wow.
Dan McLaughlin achieved this seemingly impossible dream.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of deliberate practice to overcome even like the most daunting challenges.
Yeah, but Dan's story isn't just about golf.
Right.
It's about the potential that we all have, the ability to achieve amazing things when we combine passion and dedication and the right approach.
Exactly.
It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
But I want to bring it back to our listeners.
Okay.
So we talk about the science, the motivation,
Yeah.
the inspiring examples. But how do we actually apply all this to our own lives?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it's where we shift from understanding the theory to actually putting it into practice.
Okay. So let's get practical.
All right.
What are some key takeaways from the book and what we've been talking about that our listeners can start using today?
So one of the most important things is to find the right teacher or coach.
Okay.
Someone who can provide you with personalized feedback and help you develop training methods that are tailored to your specific goals.
So it's like having a customized roadmap for your journey to expertise.
Exactly. And remember, quality trumps quantity when it comes to practice.
Okay.
It's not about mindlessly putting in hours.
Right.
It's about focusing intensely on specific areas for improvement and pushing yourself, beyond your comfort zone in these short, focused bursts.
So it's less is more, but with like maximum effort and intention.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
What else? Break down complex skills into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay.
You don't want to try to learn everything at once.
Right.
Focus on mastering one element at a time and then gradually build on that foundation.
That makes sense, especially for people who get overwhelmed with like big goals.
Exactly.
Break it down step by step.
Precisely. And remember, these principles apply not just to like hobbies or personal pursuits, but also to professional settings.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, the book highlights this really fascinating example.
So you're saying like deliberate practice can help people become better leaders and managers.
Yeah.
Even entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. The book talks about this guy named Arthur Turok.
It's okay.
He's a business consultant. And he had this kind of radical idea, like, what if we applied deliberate practice to the business world? And you know what? It worked.
Really?
He used the same principles to train business leaders, helping them get better at stuff like decision-making, negotiation, strategic thinking, all that.
It's like we've stumbled on this like universal key to success or something.
Yeah.
It's not about like what you're trying to master.
Yeah.
It's about the HOW, the deliberate practice that gets you there.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about it.
Yeah.
Deliberate practice isn't just limited to one specific thing.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're a musician or a professional or just someone who wants to get better at something you love, these principles can apply to pretty much anything.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into peak,
Yeah.
let's bring it all home.
Yeah.
You know, we debunked the myth of natural talent. We looked at how powerful deliberate practice is.
Right.
And we saw that it can be used for, like, any part of life.
And what's so great about all of this is that it shifts the focus.
Yeah.
From something you're supposedly born with to something you can actually work on and develop.
Yeah.
It gives you power, control, and the belief that you're not limited by some set of abilities you're just stuck with.
It's like peak is giving us permission to dream bigger.
Totally.
To believe that we can do so much more than we think we can.
Exactly. And with that in mind, let me leave you with one last question to think about. If we can train ourselves to do these amazing things, like perfect pitch or playing chess blindfolded,
right?
What could you achieve with focused, deliberate practice? What's that one skill or ability you've always wanted but thought you weren't talented enough for?
It's time to, like, challenge those thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
Peak shows us that anyone can become an expert if they're willing to put in the work.
The path to mastery is there.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for?
That's all for this deep dive into peak.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time.